All right, you ready?
Yeah, I was saying there are no shots of tequila. There's just water. I figured, we'd have this, get ready for happy hour. It's, get the start early.
Happy hour is right around the corner. So we'll be there in no time. As we come into our last session for this year's Innovate, I couldn't think of a better person and a better company to wrap up our theme of connecting people. Christin Brown is at Google Cloud. She's the strategy lead and head of strategy and solutions for financial services. And we're really excited to hear about the strategy of Google Cloud, all the things that they've been working on. I think certainly everyone here has interacted with Google in some capacity, but I think for a lot of people, this may be the first time live or in person we hear specifically about their strategy in capital markets and how they're thinking about working with all of us and our businesses as we're driving efficiency and workflow through everything we do in our industry. So thank you, Christin, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So maybe just to kind of get the conversation going, can you talk a little bit about the breadth and scope of your role and how you're approaching strategy development, strategy implementation for Google Cloud as we're thinking about capital markets and financial services?
Sure. If you've seen even in our earnings report that just came out, Sundar was asked the question, what's the difference? Why is Google and especially cloud performing? And it's because we've doubled down on our industry focus and focusing on our critical and key industries, which financial services is, and capital markets is a large part of that. So our strategy is within FSI is multi-pronged, right? It's understanding that there is different segmentation right within FSI that capital markets, insurance, banking are definitely unique entities and have different capabilities they need. And how can we across those sub-verticals actually provide the ecosystem and the hyperscaling, right, to support the end-to-end. So how do we have the digital natives connected to these larger institutions, which has kind of been the overarching part.
Absolutely.
And how do we help foster collaboration? How do we extend the open source ecosystems that need to interrupt, especially within capital markets?
Yeah, it's exciting. We as Symphony have been spending a lot of time with Google Cloud. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the session. But the innovation that they're bringing to capital markets is truly remarkable. Can you talk a little bit about some of the innovative things that are either on your mind or your team's mind, and things that the audience here should know about when they think Google Cloud and financial services?
Sure. Well, it's kind of hard to not talk about Google Cloud and our AI and ML. So we are definitely doubling down, and I might be a little biased, but also on our data and data analytics capabilities and enabling the ecosystem. This is why it was great that we're partnering together, and we're building more of those partnerships with the digital natives and with the overall ecosystem. You guys are the experts in financial services. We want to bring the technology expertise and bridge it together to then have those solutions for cross-industry, cross-capabilities. And part of the technology that we're bringing forward is, I don't know how many have heard, but there's a Cloud Next that just took place, and we announced, we actually have this concept called now distributed cloud. So it's how do we bring the public cloud and the edge and our network, Google, we have our own network. We own the entire thing end-to-end over the globe. It's, from the C cable down to the chips in the servers. So we're bringing those capabilities and that kind of technology, right, to down to the core to our capital markets customers so that they can enable, their innovations that they're trying to prove on the best platform to do it.
And building off of that, we had the CIO of Zoom talk a little bit earlier, and he gave some views on the state of technology in capital markets and financial services. As you're looking at the technology platforms at the different clients you're working with, how would you characterize their current technology platform, and what are you as Google looking to do to help innovate on those platforms?
Well, across all of financial services, I would say that capital markets actually is ahead. When you look at how banking and insurance, if you put the kind of big three, but who's catching up is the payments. Payments providers. I think that both payments and capital markets understand technology. Right, you need answers faster than your competition, right? Or you need to be able to process your algorithms. You need to be able to crunch your data faster. So they are all in on adopting, and they also are all in on connecting, right? So it's not necessarily that it used to be in capital markets that you had to build it all internally. But now it's that adoption of building an ecosystem and having your other tech partners, with be they fintechs, regtechs. And that's what we're trying to do, is build the platform where everybody can come together, use all the technology, and have, foster the collaboration across the entire ecosystem.
So you're thinking that payments technology is ahead of settlements technology?
I actually do. but I'm saying it's, real-time settlements to the legit real time is, I don't think it's out of the fray of things with how fast fraud and money laundering, all these kind of capabilities that AI and ML are enabling. I don't think it's as far off as people think. And it's actually being able to stay ahead of the bad actors. And I think you'll be able to do that versus, backwards looking. It'll be more proactive instead of reactive.
So I think when we think of innovation on the payment side, and you think of fintech, right? That's where a lot of the new companies and real competitors to traditional financial services organizations are emanating from.
Yep.
When you're seeing capital markets firms showing success in innovation, are they doing a high percentage of that from a proprietary basis and their internal technology teams developing, or do you see the most successful firms with broader partnerships and embracing new entrants to the industry?
In probably the last 3 years, it's exactly that. Who's adopting the ecosystem and thinking of it as an ecosystem? Because, even if you have hundreds of thousands of developers, it's still that you can fall back on those, traditional ways of doing software development. Where if you have a partner who already has a product and it's just a matter of, hey, I give you a set of feature requests, and then, hey, I can collaborate and integrate these other, and microservices, APIs, right? That whole transition of how applications and platforms are put together makes it much more that you can, swap in and out, and by adopting, who's got the best at the time, you don't always have to do it yourself. Those are the ones that are going faster. Everybody talks about Robinhood, right? Like, look what happened in that environment. But what's their strategy? It's all digital native and adopting the part of the ecosystem. So it's fun to watch.
Interesting. So building off of that, when you think about a logical next question is around information security. And when you talk about partnering with firms and having external organizations come into your infrastructure, your technology stack, the first question that we get, other industry participants get, is from the CISO on, tell me about how you're going to protect my data, how you're going to ensure that what we have is not visible to others, and how are you handling our precious and sometimes often market-moving information. And what's your perspective on that from the financial services industry relative to where people probably think of Google as more of the individual side,
right,
where
like
data's all over the place?
A lot of people have the misconception that Google is just consumer, right? But that's part of the shift, right? But why we're going in on is towards the enterprise. From the beginning, believe it or not, we have had it's this concept of, we call it zero trust. Okay. So we are a cloud provider that from the chip that is in the machine to the network to the actual physical devices that your data is stored on is 100% we own the supply chain and end to end, and can tell you exactly where it was made, the data was made, the 6 people that were making it, what machines, how it transferred to that. And the fact of our encryption at all the levels. We even make our own security keys that we enable, HSMs, all that kind of stuff that we put together, and we take like security and data privacy is the 2 paramount things, even in the consumer market, but even more so in the enterprise, that we bring forward. And that's part of, one of our core tenets of when you come work with us, that's, we want to work with you and show you exactly, because there is a misconception, right? That people think the cloud, it's scary, it's safe, and it's less secure. And we actually want to show folks that actually it's quite different, because we think we have a pretty good security proposition that we may be able to prove to you that we have more security than your actual data center. So that's one of our core tenets.
So what are the common questions that you get when you meet with a new global commercial bank or insurance company or some of the financial services, and they're not as familiar with Google Cloud as they may be with other cloud providers, or they're just not experienced with a model where data is outside of their environment. What are people asking you?
So,
what's top of mind for?
Well, always for anywhere in financial services, it's their favorite friends are the regulators. That's their people they like to talk to every single day. So they always ask, what's my regulator going to tell me? Like if I tell them I'm working with Google Cloud, and do I have a big giant red X on my on my chest now? And that right, where is my risk? Because it's all about where operational risk and position risk, all that stuff, right? Is how does this affect my risk, and is my chief risk officer going to, go down in flames if we make these kind of decisions? So that's where we always start the conversation and explain. We're very transparent, and we've been building a whole portfolio of applications on top, like our security command center and compliance center, that allows you to have all that transparency and a dashboard, right? Similar to the concepts you guys have been doing for the buy, sell side, but on the technology and operations side is how can you see that in a single pane of glass, so that if you have ISO standards or SEC, you can go through your portfolio and look through the frameworks and find out where you're flaming red or you might have issues, or that you can actually print the reports off, hand it to your regulator, and say it's for transparency. So that's what we're trying to do, is be as transparent as possible. And the fact that we are always big on open source, right? So we are, Kubernetes was born and raised inside of Google, and that's kind of one of the big parts is we don't, concentration risk is a big, to add to the risk theme. So we're trying to show and build more and more of our platform with Anthos, with Kubernetes, about how adopting the open architectures and the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, meeting folks, so that you can interoperate between the cloud on-prem or multi-cloud providers and your on-prem, but manage it in a way that it's cohesive and understood.
And are you finding more of your business opportunities are displacement of existing cloud providers? There's a lot out there. Or are you seeing that firms are deciding now's the time to move infrastructure and different levels of criticality from internally managed to a cloud environment that they have someone like Google Cloud come in and
Right. For capital markets, it definitely was, the pandemic was a big cursor for us of, we got to show off of, hey, guess what? If there is no trading floor, we can help you simulate the same environment and keep, in a secure way, even though, you're, Bob's on the couch and Sue's at the kitchen table. You can still have that same experience, as a trading floor, but in a remote, disconnected way. So that was been a big piece, but it also depends on the market, right? Like retailers, of course, it's not that hard. Right. Retailers obviously, want to do lots of work, but for a whole host of other reasons. But it is I would say it's a mix. One is that because we just want to show everybody that front and center we take our technology serious and about innovating the technology. Especially around AI and ML, our like I said, our chipsets, our GPUs, our TPUs, like down to the core of how your algorithms are going to process, and assuring that the same way you run it, it's going to run exactly the same every single time, and you're not scratching your head like, what the heck, I ran it here on-prem and it did this, and then I put it somewhere else and it went off the rails. We're trying to have that whole seamless experience for the capital markets environment.
And I assume that ties into the strategy of accelerating cloud deployments. I think certainly in capital markets, financial services, for many years, everyone wanted to own the full technology stack.
Yep.
And anything outside of complete control was exposing data to people that shouldn't see it, and there was risk associated with it, and it was just better to keep everything inside. And little by little, we've seen, whether it's Salesforce or the cloud companies or all the other ASP type organizations, there's different approaches to managing cloud and managing data. How does, from your business strategy standpoint, how do you think about, what are you guys doing to accelerate cloud adoption and getting people really comfortable that this is the future and this is how capital markets and financial services should operate from a tech stack perspective, as opposed to feeling that everything has to be so closed and proprietary?
We start with if you look at the center is the data itself. Because we have met lots of companies who have lots of data. Like data is not in short supply. But the problem is they are getting no information out of their data. So that is what we show them, is that, you may think the cloud is a big bad thing, but let's just start without your PII or your, data that you're like, oh geez, that's like handing the keys over. And just from the non-PII, this whole structured, unstructured data elements, how do you take your unstructured data, combine it with your structured data, and just run an auto ML type queries or base analytics, and people are shocked at the insights just from that, right? Non-intrusive. So that's kind of where we started as the core for how to bring onto cloud, is starting with data and data wrangle, because that is a huge problem and it's so expensive, right? You look today, there's copies of data all over the place. Like, how do you really get to a trusted source? I could talk for hours about this problem, but that's really the core of where we start with most enterprises, is that we can help you get the information out of your data.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. This is an industry that runs off data, whether it's market data, information, trade data, right? It's an information-based industry. Yeah. And when you think of what Google Cloud and Google Analytics can do with data, what are some of the examples that you talk to traders, portfolio managers, other participants in capital markets on? You're creating all this data, it's going all over the place, but you're actually not harnessing it in any way that's useful to you. And maybe in a lot of circumstances, you're just giving it away to others, and it's actual real value that you're not capturing as a firm. So
one example I'll use is like investment research,
okay,
right, which is a really expensive and lots, right? There's lots of data scientists and all on that side of the house. For investment research to work, you need the workflow and you need a platform. And that's exactly how we go to them. It's like, we're not going to be better at investment research, but we're going to give you the tools in the environment to have that, seeking alpha, searching for alpha is like gold, right? And that's exactly what we do. And we also give the data capabilities that you can explore data sets, right? Because part of it is you have to do, it's like gold mining, right? You're doing lots of expedition, oil, gold mining, right? You're doing lots of exploring expedition, and, try it before you buy it, And how do we set up that environment so they can do lots of that prospecting to find that gold that then they can turn into actual products and services? So that's kind of, one of the examples of things that we're helping, because we have the platform that you can do those things, right? You can try to prospect and you can search for data, all in one ecosystem, and not end up having to put a new, TCAP line in or another feed set up, to go through. Yeah.
How long does it take for the clients that you talk to get to that oh wow moment of, we've been operating a trade infrastructure this way for a long time, this is how we do it, and then you're able to do some analytics, provide different types of data back to them, reports, and is it a quick, yes, we need to do this, or is it a longer, interesting, but...
It depends on the institution, right? So I would say the digital natives, we can have one conversation, show them a couple demos of things, and they're like, we're sold, right? Where can we sign? The more ingrained, true Wall Street cap markets firms, because it's so counter to, and it's kind of like you have to move the Titanic, right? Like, that's how they phrase it, right? They don't want to hit the iceberg, right? So it really depends on but it's a case of, we get a lot of traction, especially in the data science areas, where they just are like, wow, this is a lot more efficient than what we're trying to do. But other parts, right, I think it's across the whole market, right? It's not just Google Cloud, it's all cloud. They're still afraid of cloud. And it's just, we have to, show them we're not the big bad wolf. It's actually, it's actually probably where they can do a lot more than they realize.
Well, from our experience, you're certainly not the big. I think everyone's heard a lot about Symphony strategy over today, and the things that we've really been working on as a company. It was a really busy summer for us. We brought Cloud9 into the Symphony organization. We brought StreetLinks into the Symphony organization. We spent a lot of time talking to market participants and our customers and clients about our strategy and where we're focusing. And we signed a very strategic partnership with you and the Google Cloud team, which was something that, in the whole scheme of partnerships and the breadth of it, happened pretty quickly. So I have a good sense from our side how we got to the decision. But in your role, when someone, when Brian walked in, and the team walked in and said, "Hey, we want to partner with Symphony, and here's what we're thinking." What was your reaction? How did you think about it? And why was it eventually something that you said, yes, we really want to spend time and investment and commit to this type of partnership?
Well, one, our strategies going forward are very aligned,
Yeah.
right? And we both are big champions for open source. It's one of those. It's like easy. It's easier when you have the fundamentals of like the core strategies to our strategy matches yours very well. And we also had similar goals about how AI and ML could be applied in this market space. And you guys are doing a lot of cool things. And we thought there was actually some of our engines could make your stuff even cooler. So. That's kind of where, Brian will tell you, we sit down and look at, where's kind of the gaps we can help fill in your portfolio already to force multiply and, supersize what you're already doing, and then innovate, right, extend through it. So that's when we set up the partnerships. That's what we're trying to do, because that's what we want to, like, literally, we want to be the ecosystem and the platform that the markets can run on, and how do we, force multiply everybody across the board.
And what type of feedback have you been receiving from your partnerships that you're doing with Symphony, your other industry partnerships? Do you feel that there's a real reception to the strategy?
Yeah, if you notice, that's actually where we're doubling down, is having more partnerships. Like you'll see some more of these announcements even coming in the next couple of weeks.
All right.
In capital markets. That's what it is we're doubling down with the industry partners because how do we get better at serving the industry other than partnering with the leaders in the industry, and letting you guys do great things, and then coming back to us and saying it would be even better if you could do X, Y, So that's what we, having that innovation channel between our partners and the market. So partnering within the industry is definitely one of our core tenets.
Yeah, and we're very excited about it. We're a Google Workplace organization. We use Google products quite frequently across, and we're seeing more and more every day use cases of, here's a Google application, a Google workflow that just aligns directly with a Symphony approach. And I think as we go through the next months, quarters, years, we're going to see a real kind of symbiotic partnership between the two organizations. And we're excited about the capabilities that Google can bring into Symphony. And then by extension, those are capabilities that we can deliver out to our client set.
Yeah. I also think with you and I was going to say Dietmar, if he was here, he'd be shaking.
He's up there.
I was going to say he's shaking his head at me. But also, to the converse of our applications, right, is, like I said, you guys are the experts, is how do we, instead of the Google inside, like have the Symphony inside, right, kind of converse, that you'll start seeing more of that in the ecosystem, right, on Google Cloud. It's that you'll be like, oh, I didn't realize, we're doing this stuff with Workspace, but also has a direct integration at Symphony. Or, our App Engine, oh, look at that. There's something from Symphony that now we can spin up. So it's those kind of things, too, that we're trying to do is make it so that, your customers, as they're working in the environment, they want to connect to all their partners. It's an easy integration in a matter of, 2 clicks away, and you're connected.
Yeah, definitely exciting. I think the simplicity of that integration is what is going to drive the success of so many of the different things that we're doing. So we're coming up with only a couple minutes left, so a few more questions. Whenever I have a chance to spend time with a Googler, there's always so much about your company that we want to learn. People want to know. Right? So just kind of open-ended question. And it's not specific to financial services,
sure.
But what are some things about Google that you would like the audience to know that we may not know, whether it's a product, a feature, a functionality, something new that's happening that you're able to talk about? I mean, there's just so much innovation that happens, and it's exciting to have that in capital markets, but we also all have a relationship with Google outside of work. So what are some things that are fun to talk about?
Well, some of the cool things we're doing that actually indirectly helps capital markets is, are you guys familiar with Google Earth Engine? So we literally have our own planes, our own helicopters, our own massive digital sets of satellites. And we have now literally mapped the globe and even to the geo level, where we've run these sonar, LiDAR, right? So think of Street View, but at the planet scale, right? Where, across oceans. Well, now we actually have it commercially available, where now, right? So think of anybody who's got to deal with ESG, right? The favorite topic of now, and everybody in capital markets is like, where can we find the data to figure this all out? That's part of what we're trying to help, because sustainability is a huge part We want people to come to our cloud
Yep.
because that's the other thing is when you're running on our cloud, you know that it's carbon neutral or zero carbon, right? That's the other part as you're executing and delivering great compute takes a lot of energy, but we're working out, and doing it so that it is not an impact and we're using renewable, sustainable energy. So, but to that end is then how do we allow the data for all the folks who have to figure out these calculations and the regulations that are coming? So to me, that's one of the cool new things. And how we're now making all the secret sauce that we've had, in Google Maps and Waze when you're like, wait, why did I just turn left, right? Like it's all that part and the imagery and actually tabular data that has developed these products is now going to be available for folks to tap into, which, as you're trying to come up with your ESG type portfolio, it'll be super helpful to understand, floods, fires, all these, natural disaster patterns. It's all going to be out there. So that's probably
And it all comes back to the data.
Yes.
Right? Being able to harness new types
Yes.
of data,
Yeah.
bring it into an investment decision process, and
Yes. Yep.
it's pretty interesting stuff. Anything else on your mind that you want to comment on? Or
one other area just would be in our AI capabilities.
Yeah.
So I don't know, again, if you guys have followed, but Google, we bought a company called Brain, and they're now called as Google Brain, which is and DeepMind. Yeah. And now we've combined their superpowers of coming up with new forms and then matching on top of quantum computing. So just be on the lookout because a lot, natural language processing is now getting to a point where we have so much training and capabilities that it's there's gonna be a lot of cool things that come out in that space where your interactions and the security around it. That's the part that today, right? Wouldn't you love to be able to talk to your Google Home and do bank transactions or investment transactions and those kind of things? And
we've heard that several times
Yes.
today from speakers talking about products of, I know it works. Why can't I just use my voice to make it work?
Exactly.
Right.
And the security, because the biggest part is the security, right? Like it's not an easy feat, but I'm excited about the things that are coming around in that area, especially.
Yeah, and I think those all tie in very well to what we're doing with Symphony around voice interaction, around the trading, chat, collaboration, and then connectivity and identity with what we brought in with StreetLinks.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me.
This has been I think a great way to wrap up Innovate. Odette's going to come up for some final words, then bring Brad on stage. But Christin, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.